Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a little bit of a review on the M551 76. I said this year I'd do a few more videos on kind of the event vehicles and stuff like that, so why not have a look at this one? We'll have a portion where we talk about it in the hangar, and also have a portion of gameplay with some thoughts. So make sure if you're interested in the gameplay stuff to use the timestamps and just go to that one. The Sheridan 76 is pretty much a Sheridan with a 76. I don't know how else to put it. It's the 76mm M32 cannon. It was on the M551A1 that you see here, and has the similar rounds to it. So you have the APDS, the APBC, HE, and smoke. The APDS is definitely the way to go. It's a light tank, so it has access to scouting, and also has access to a 50 cal as a secondary. The big difference between this and the standard Bulldog is the fact that this 76mm has a stabilizer. It actually has a two-plane stabilizer, and the only issue with it is, you can see there, the wonderful 2.8 degrees per second vertical speed. But since it's at 6.7, having a stabilizer means that you can get the first shot off pretty much every time against anything that's around. It also has fire control for the commander, which is another nice thing, especially if your gunner gets taken out. So even though it uses a pretty weak gun, what you find is, because it has a stabilizer, and because most of the vehicles you face are stuff like kind of big heavies, you're able to get the first shot off quite well, especially with the penetration on the gun itself. At 6.7, you have a really nice lineup as well, which works great for it. And also, being a light vehicle, one of the big factors is, of course, the engine. Now, it has a 300 horsepower one. Its transmission is not the best, but going forward is completely fine. Going backwards is where it gets a little bit of a problem, because it can't really reverse too well. So if you get into those positions where you have to get out again, it's going to take a while to be able to do it. But this vehicle so far has been really fun to play. It is the main prize of the Battle Pass, so you will unlock it at level 75, and it does come with the skin at 79 as well. One thing to note is I was given this as a test drive from Gaijin, so it did come out fully spaded, but it is a premium, so when you get it, it'll be fully spaded too, so it won't be any different compared to what you see. Right now, it just feels really good. My general synopsis is that it's probably going to go up in BR, mainly because of the stabilizer and also the mobility, but overall, it is quite nice. So the gameplay side of this vehicle is pretty simple. You use its mobility to get into aggressive scouting positions. You then scout all of the enemy, usually a bunch of heavy tanks, and then you pick them off with the stabilizer as you go, and use the APDS for the pen. Surprisingly, with the APDS, I actually didn't find too many issues with the overall post-penetration damage. Sometimes it let me down, but actually a lot of the time I was able to one-shot stuff like Target 2s and things like that, which was super nice. And since you have a stabilizer, and pretty much nobody else has a stabilizer, you can always guarantee getting the first shot off as long as you don't fall prey to the vertical aiming speed. The other thing about this vehicle is it has really good optics, so having really good optics means that aiming at range is a lot easier, especially since the APDS has pretty decent muzzle velocity, and scouting is also made a lot easier now that they've removed that bug, which means that you would just miss randomly for no apparent reason. But the thing with this vehicle, the only time it'll really let you down is if you're in a situation where you're trying to get a specific shot off and the vertical is too slow, or you shoot a vehicle, you don't do enough damage, and then you fire, or then they fire back at you and you obviously die because, you know, your survivability is basically negative in this thing. So one of the things that I would highly recommend is, in this, once you take those aggressive positions, using the mobility to get there, peek and shoot back, peek and shoot back. Don't take aggressive kind of overall engagement, because you just cannot fully rely on the round to be able to deal damage. And pretty much all vehicles at this BR that you'll face, which is a lot of Soviet heavies, a lot of German heavies, they all have like AP with HE filler, so the moment that you hit, you're just dead. So you have to be able to hit them on the move, you have to be able to hit them when they're not looking at you, and with the stabilizer, it's super easy to do. You also have some smoke grenades, so you can use them to actually, maneuver and go around the place. Be careful of the reverse gear. The reverse gear isn't as good as I remember when it comes to the Sheridan, so that can be a bit of a problem with it. And also, you will fall prey to a bunch of casts because they'll just take you out and annihilate you. One of the great things about the Sheridan, though, and the reason why it's good to play it aggressive, is because you have such a good lineup with the, overall vehicles in the American tech tree. 6.7 is stacked for America. You've got the T-34, you got the T-30, P-51, A1H, just as a standard setup, then stuff like the Scorpion, the Ontos, and then all of the other tanks, like the big head tank, the M6, at 6.7, and then also you have stuff like the F2G and many other CAS aircraft you can bring along. The only thing this lineup doesn't really have is a AA, but because you have so many different planes, you can always bring them in, which is why I say use this thing aggressively. Use this thing to get into areas where you usually wouldn't go, try and scout, try and get some kills, and if you fail, that's fine, because you got a backup T-34, probably the best heavy tank at 6.7 to be able to do damage and also do really well in. So if you die early in a game, doesn't really matter too much, but the upside is huge with this vehicle, because if you're able to make those little incisions as you go through, that's really, really positive for it, and you can go forward and, win the game for your team. The matches that I played in this thing, I ended up getting a very high win rate. I think it was like 70 to 80%, 2 to 3 to 1 KD. And the major reason was I was just taking chances. And sometimes those chances pay off. Sometimes it works really well. Other times, you just kind of get flattened. But because of the fact that this vehicle has so much great backup with it, you can do really, really well overall. So I would highly recommend playing this thing super aggressively, and also take advantage of it before this thing goes up in BR. I'm pretty sure it does because of the stabilizer, and even though, the round itself doesn't do as much damage, it will definitely overall have a, it will definitely overall, with the reload it has, just be able to plink and plonk and go after stuff. You will have to learn where ammo is on vehicles. You will have to aim for gunners quite a lot, just because of the spread of the round doesn't do as much, but I'm sure you'll be fine in that. At the point that this vehicle is at in mid-tier, generally that should have already kind of been worked out. Doesn't exactly have the greatest rewards on it, which should be noted, but overall it still, will produce quite a lot, just because of the lineup around it and how positive it is. This will also be a great event vehicle, because as we know, in a lot of events, like the 292 event that just exists, was just there, or, the summer or winter event, if they decide to do those, getting into planes in ground guarantees you a lot more score than it does in by staying in the ground vehicles. So this can be a great kind of catapult point to the P51, to the A1H, or to whatever you really want to bring along. The only question I have of this is, do you take it over the other light tank? Do you take it over the Scorpion? Now, obviously you can bring both if you want, but as a person who usually only brings 5 vehicles, I don't think I would want to take both of them. They basically fill kind of the same niche, but depending on the map, will work, differently. The M56 with its heat will do a lot better against these heavier targets, whereas the 76mm with its stabilizer will be able to get a lot more shots off at different targets, and also the size difference is massive. So it's really map dependent which one that you take. I would personally take the 76 probably in more situations, just because it stacks up a little bit better, and also can't get fully machine gun to death, at least from the front. From the side it can, so you got to be a bit careful of that. But yeah, it's something to note at. But with this one, if you take, if you understand that the vertical speed is not very good, also understand that the optics are very good, and the gun itself is okay, all the other factors are great. So you'll have a wonderful time with this one. I highly recommend it. It's really, really fun at the moment in the current meta. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.